thank you very much for doing this, Jeremy. I was trying to think back. We met, I think, in Stroud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were showing your film Everybody in the Place.
I was.
And it was in like a little warehouse on the outskirts of Stroud as part of a sort of weekend festival thing or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I tend to say yes to any
Just sounds
opportunity
good. Yeah.
to leave London.
And it was a nice and dark, sweaty room.
Mm.
And you showed your film, did a bit of a talk, and
Yeah.
then I showed my film, bit of a talk. And I've obviously been aware of your work for quite a long time. I think I was first aware because of Acid Brass.
Yeah.
And that massively connected me because I'm from that era. And also the person I used to do music with was from the north, and we used to go to visit him and his family in Hebden Bridge. So yeah, Acid House and Brass was a big connector to me. And then obviously your fabulous
The
mind map. Yeah. So I suppose just for the benefit of people who don't know you, if you could give a potted history of your work.
Well, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
But I sort of fell into it. I didn't go to art college.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested in culture and history and social history.
Yeah.
Luckily now, you don't have to be a skilled painter or sculptor to become an artist, because I don't have those skills. I have other skills. What they are remains to be seen. It's not for me to say, but Acid Brass, I should explain, was a project I made in '97, and it was a brass band playing acid house music, which on the face of it is a ridiculous thing. It's a piece of sort of instant nostalgia, almost too soon nostalgia for something that had finished, probably 5 years before, that scene, or 6 years before it finished. But I wanted to make a work about Britain through music.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the history of Britain through music, from industrial culture of brass bands to the digital culture of acid house music, but to be encapsulated within a brass band playing acid house music. But there's lots of connections between the two music making forms, but it was really trying to tell a story about a country in the 20th century, go from one thing to the other.
And I think when I heard about it, it was just one of those, like, that's just such a perfect idea. Why hasn't it been done before? It just seemed like a brilliant combination of two what seemed like disparate ideas, but putting them together.
Well, you obviously got it. You understood why it was an idea and what it meant. A lot of people don't quite get that. They maybe see it as just a funny musical project. But for me, it was really, if you got it or you didn't, but you could still appreciate it as music, because I chose tracks that would sound really great with the brass band playing, and would sound strong. I never wanted to take the piss out of the band or that culture even. I thought it was quite an interesting culture. And in the South, at least, was never really taken seriously or was seen as a cliche. But I was interested in looking at it again, maybe, or just looking at it and seeing what you could do with a brass band and how that would work. And it was just really a way to look at history through music and storytelling through music.
And I think there's something about when, again, like you think about the idea, and when you hear a brass band play Pacific State, for example, you suddenly realise all that melancholy that you didn't quite notice in the original.
Yeah.
But somehow it's been played by a tuba and brass, and it's like, gets you somewhere else,
Yeah, it's quite sad, that song, actually, when it's played by brass. Graham Massey, a lot of those musicians were trained musicians as well.
Yeah.
They weren't just into electronics. So Graham Massey was a clarinet player.
Right.
And he plays on a lot of 808 State records, as you'd expect, but he plays the solos and he plays the clarinet. So he understood it, and he was very supportive. I think all the artists were that we approached or informed that we were doing this thing.
Yeah.
Bill and Jimmy from the KLF were really intrigued by it. And so even Gerald was into it for a while. He has a quite complicated relationship with Voodoo Ray, though.
With that song, yeah.
Yeah, but still, they kind of got it.
Yeah.
Likewise, when I did Everybody in the Place, a lot of people who were making dance music at that time wrote to me saying, really loved your film. but we're probably going to talk about that in a minute. But so with Acid Brass, it was basically, yeah, it was a storytelling through music. It was meant to be enjoyable. It was a bit of an adventure, really, because we didn't know if people would like it. The first performance we did, it was sort of half full auditorium, and I think a lot of people went because they thought it was a sort of a joke. They didn't know what to expect, and then the band played, and it's like very powerful when you hear a brass band play, very loud, and they were a really good band as well. They were the top rated band in UK, so they were really on it, and it was very impressive sound, and it looked impressive, and I think people were converted relatively quickly. You know, within minutes, it was like, wow.
Because they do play. I mean, you know, they do play contemporary music. I mean, that's one of the interesting things. It's like usually a brass band, you think of it, oh, it's going to play traditional music, but actually they play a massive range of stuff. I remember hearing Thriller and thinking, this is better than the original. It absolutely kicks,
Well,
you know.
yeah, and also, you know, there's always commissions for brass. They're always looking for new pieces to play, new pieces for the repertoire, and there's composers, and they compete, and they're very sophisticated pieces, the competition pieces, you know, they're 15 minutes long. They have all these different moments in them. So brass bands are very adaptable musical group, musical form, basically. They can play most things. So I knew it would sound okay if I selected the right songs.
And of course, there's that connection to the mining industry with the brass.
Yeah, and trade unions and heavy industry in general. So that was also another thing that was interesting to me. And that all comes out in the mind map, the history of the world, all those elements. It was just a way of tying up stuff, loose ends, through music. And in a way, that's what the history of the world is trying to tie up and connect all these different things through a musical project.
So I reread your fabulous book, Art is Magic, which I did get a signed copy of.
Did you?
Although not directly from you, because when we met at a festival, you'd sold out. And I was like, what? And you said you can get it from Rough Trade. So I did do that.
Yes,
so.
You would have done.
But I was rereading it last night, and there was a few sort of things that kind of struck me. That the word folk comes up a heck of a lot. And obviously that's connected to my film. But talk to me a little bit about, I suppose there's a lot of your interest in both popular culture, but also folk art or folk culture. Would you say that's true? Or
yeah, and the connection between the two. That's just from childhood, really. I was always a consumer of pop art, or popular culture, not pop art.
Popular culture.
Popular culture, pop music. It's given me a lot of happiness.
Right.
You know? So I was always very interested in it. And however trivial it might be, I always took it quite seriously as well. So I think it's very special. Like pop music is a very special art form, and so I was always interested in it.
Yeah.
And folk culture is almost, I'd say, creative culture outside of established structures of art schools and museums and galleries that just exists anyway, organically, and that's always something I've been very interested in.
As in the folk are the makers of that art, and it's not. It hasn't got a commercial.
Not necessarily. You do it for the love of it, and it has great meaning for you and significance, but it might not have any value, monetary value. That's that for me is interesting. So I've always appreciated that, and I think a lot of artists appreciate it. It's something they're interested in.
And I mean, what kind of examples could you give of folk art that you've focused on? Obviously,
well, trade union banners, and then a lot of folk events, mainly in the countryside, of people doing very dangerous things in groups, villages doing things together, people knitting things, making things, graffiti art almost, but sort of customizing things, flower arrangements, cooking, all these sort of creative endeavours. Something that was really interesting to me and to Alan. I did it with my colleague Alan Kane. We went on a tour of Britain, effectively, just bumping into stuff. You know, we met someone who made a mechanical elephant to give kids a ride on, and all, you know, just stuff like that. Things that people make and love making and doing and showing to the public. It's all public as well. Most of it is public art.
Yeah.
because you're showing it in some way. So we were very excited by that, and we know that it's super influential to contemporary art and has been for forever, basically. So,
And where does this drive come from? This kind of
drive of what? Drive to
to make art
oh,
like
for
this.
me, or just
no, I'm talking about, but I suppose about the folk art. I mean, for you, for certainly, but the folk art thing. Why do I suppose why do humans keep making stuff? You know,
because
like
they're
this.
creative. It's what makes them maybe different from other animals.
Mm.
That and a sense of humour. It's just a sophisticated. We're more sophisticated animals, maybe, or mammals, and we can do it, and it's enjoyable, but also it can be very serious as well. It can communicate your spiritual beliefs and how you feel about the world and yourself and all those things. But also, maybe it's something that is a group effort that brings people together to do something, to make something, or create a building or structure. So it has many uses. But I think it's just, on the whole, now it's just something that makes you happy.
And is making art for you this has the same drive? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. It just keeps you on track. I think I say in the book, it keeps you being in love with the world, which is quite a difficult thing at the moment. It's very difficult because the world is such a mess, and I'm quite a pessimistic person, if not apocalyptic. And so for me, it's really important to have something to keep me going. And I think that's what art does for a lot of people. It keeps them going.
There was a phrase I really liked in the book as well, where it said you weren't necessarily making things, but you were making things happen.
Yeah, that's true.
And that really connected to sort of the people in my film and the kind of event creation that they were doing.
Because that's what a club is, or well, not that Free Parties were clubs, were they? Because that's in established venues, and it's every week at this time. Or they were creating happenings, effectively, and experiences, and you never knew what was going to happen. Even though it's called a happening, it wasn't really in your control. And so I like that. I like the idea of a loss of control and just seeing what happens, kind of experiment, almost this sort of social human experiments, which sounds dodgy, but it's not. It's just what happens when you get a group of people and you hear this kind of music. What's the effect on people? Or when you do a certain thing together. So things like that I find very interesting. I'm very interested in human behaviour, as we all are. You know, we could look at footage of people dancing forever. You know, it's the most interesting thing almost. So
That was you basically described my entire lockdown, which was just looking through loads and loads of incredible archive that people had sent me. Of course, and it could not be more different from the experience we were all having at the time. And I was watching people in the most ecstatic states in a field somewhere outside Bristol, you know, doing it entirely for in a non-commercial setting. And it was just what a contrast to all of our digital obsessed, you know, four-wall created kind of world. So
I think a lot of young people are very interested in that moment. It seems more free. I don't know if it was more free, but people see it as more free. You know, it's pre-mobile phone, pre-internet, and it's sort of unsurveyed.
Yeah.
You know, you're lucky if there was one camera or one person filming.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how much footage is there of Castle Morgan? It's like 20,000 people. It's probably a few minutes of footage and some photographs somewhere, maybe. But I mean, on the whole, that wasn't people's priority, and it was just to just have whatever it was they were doing. But so there's the rarity value as well, which is sort of interesting for people. You sort of do have to search for it a bit.
I think the thing about the sort of treasure aspect of finding the joy of a moment that's outside of the commercial mainstream, that was in some ways, you know, folk art, you know.
Well, it was like a folk celebration, wasn't it? It was a. Also, the idea that you had to find it and you had to go on a quest, so this has this sort of mythic quality to it, doesn't it? It's almost like a video game or some sort of quest, or Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, to hero's journey.
Yeah, on the horizon, you see these lights, and you know you're close to the site that you've been driving around for hours to find, or something like that. So it has this mythical quality to it.
And you've got to dodge the police and
all of that. So it becomes a in real life video game almost.
So let's talk a little bit about Everybody in the Place, because I think when I saw it, I was almost I was in development on my film. I'd
It's
been
quite dangerous seeing someone else's film.
terrible, yeah. And when I heard
Very
about it,
brave.
I was like, oh fuck, Jeremy Deller's made a film
Yeah,
about
but it's
Raves and
not.
Castle Morton. But it's obviously it's not. And I was both I loved it and I was supremely inspired by it, but I was also relieved because
Yeah, yeah.
you sort of focused in a way on
It's actually about young people now.
yes,
It's a
yeah.
film shot in a school with students, with me, unfortunately, giving a talk about the 80s and early 90s,
Mm,
about politics, but also about the music.
mm.
So it's a lot of different things, but it's not exclusively about free parties. There's
No,
a bit. There is a bit,
there is a
as you
bit.
know, but it's literally like 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's a bit about the traveller movement, which is fascinating.
yeah.
But yeah, your story is totally different from mine, really,
Mm,
in the sense that there's so much to talk about, isn't there?
yeah.
But yeah, you're very brave to see. You know, if I knew someone was making a film about something related to what I was doing, I would just avoid it like the
I
plague.
know, I know. And in fact, other things have popped up over the years, and people said, "Oh, you should really watch this." And I'm like, "No, no, I
Because
refuse
I
to do
know
it."
for a fact there are other films, aren't there? At the moment, it seems to be very
Mm,
something people are desperate to sort of tell people about or re-examine and look at again.
mm,
And you know, because it couldn't be more different from the world we live in now, in a
mm.
sense, in terms of socializing.
What did I mean? Obviously, it was an era that you lived through to some extent.
Yeah.
What made you feel like it was special and important to talk about and to, in some ways, recontextualize for a younger audience or a
Yeah.
modern
I
audience?
mean, I didn't go to all those famous
Mm,
clubs for a number of reasons, and one of which is I don't really like crowds, and so I would, for me, and I didn't really have anyone to go with, and I think there's no way people went to those massive raves by themselves. And it was
no,
definitely you went with your mates, and it was
in the back of a Ford Escort. Yeah,
exactly that kind of thing. I didn't have that, and but you know that's fine. But I've never been one to sort of do that kind of thing anyway.
yeah.
So, but I as soon as it started, and I was reading about it, I thought this is really important, and this is kind of amazing what's going on because no one could have predicted that 6 months before.
Mm,
Government had no idea what was going on. They couldn't understand it. The record companies couldn't understand it. No one could get it apart from people doing it. These huge movements of people across the country from to parties out of cities into the countryside,
mm,
just this music that most people would not even comprehend as music. And so I just thought this is really important. It's a really important moment. And I thought about it at the time, and hence Acid Brass is about that.
mm.
And for a long time, that music and that moment was not taken seriously, and the music wasn't taken seriously, and the whole drug culture around it was the only thing people would talk
Yeah.
about. And so that didn't do it any favors. And so I just held on to maybe making a film that took it seriously and put it in a context as I saw it about what was going on before it happened and why it was necessary, but maybe why it happened and why it's so big in Britain,
Mm.
what the circumstances, why people needed something. Sort of psychically, the country needed a release from what had been happening, you know, with the miners' strike and the way the traveller movement had been sort of persecuted and so on. So it was all about that, about the politics, with a small, well, kind of a big P and a small p,
Yeah.
and why people were ready and needed it.
Mm. And is this, I mean, there's something that always struck me when I was looking into that era, that in a way it was like, because it was just before the digital world arrived,
Mm.
but in some ways it was sort of heralding in this new future that
It
was
absolutely was.
electronic.
Yeah. If you look at the flyers,
Mm.
which is kind of amazing when you look at them, you know, there's stuff about like virtual reality room,
Yeah.
3D graphics, of course lasers, which are very futuristic, and then sort of like walking video games, cyber this, cyber that. It was really cutting edge, but very amateur versions of what we take for granted now.
Yeah, often done analog as well, probably
course.
not even made on a
Yeah,
computer.
yeah.
But
So, but it was definitely like looking at the future and looking at futurism. It was a very futuristic moment and very trusting in that, but interested in it on a budget. But it was you know very closely related to video games as well. If I was to make the film again, I'd go into more detail about that and a few other things actually that I didn't have time or hadn't thought about properly. But the futuristic and futurism of it was really interesting, I think, or certain elements of it were. because it's about, it's almost just pre-internet, but maybe the internet was going. I mean, not really. It wasn't.
No.
And so it was just on the cusp of this amazing sort of revolution in technology. But it was talking about it before it happened. And of course, the music was totally digital on the whole, the samples and that. But really, the music was really out there in terms of what that had arrived. But the visuals and the other tech probably hadn't quite arrived at that point. But it was kind of scratching or sort of like scrabbling to get to that point.
And in some ways, I suppose there's a sadness looking back at that now, because it was really utopian.
Yeah.
And we're now at the dystopian end of the digital.
Well, we really are, aren't we? Because all the, tech now, I mean, it really, again, you cannot believe what's happening with certain characters in the tech world and where they've gone. Could be further away from the spirit of that moment. And again, that's another reason young people are interested in it, because it was a moment of hope around technology rather than this, apocalyptic moment with technology. I always thought, years ago, I was thinking, God, I bet the next World War starts online with someone saying something on Instagram. We'll have an Instagram World War, or a Facebook World War, or someone connected to that technology will start the war by saying or doing something ridiculous or stupid. And we're sort of getting close to that moment, aren't we? It won't be between countries, it'll be between a technology or a technologist and a country or another one. So for me, I hate to say it, but yeah, it's not great, is it? Potentially now. But so maybe that's why young people are so intrigued by it, because it was just before the internet.
Yeah.
But everything was still up for grabs, it felt.
Yeah.
And then the parties were, not all of them, a lot of them were free, and in the countryside. So you have this bucolic idea of kind of paradise. Because if you look at lots of paintings of paradise and bacchanals through mythologies, they always happen in the countryside, in forests, and people are enjoying themselves. They're dancing, they're drinking, they're with members of, with members of the opposite or the same sex with each other. They're enjoying themselves with abandon. And that was the promise. Of course, I don't think, not that I went to any of those things, but it was very exciting to think of that.
And I guess, and there's this sort of joy that young people have of doing something for themselves without, I suppose, the mainstream kind of, as in there's a rebellious element of it.
It's flat, isn't it? It's not hierarchical. Of course, it became it very quickly, but there's a sort of flatness to it. There's probably a term for that, but that's when the DJs weren't necessarily on stage with lights on them. They would just be on the same level as you in the corner. They weren't important, really. They were just purveyors of something. And but it seemed flatter, but of course those things change very quickly. I mean, people realise they can make money out of something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the drugs are so interesting, because they kind of made the scene and they destroyed it at the same time. I think, and you could discuss this forever, but it worked both ways with the drug. It was necessary to inject a sort of element of love into people's lives and community or empathy. The drug was like a shortcut to that, but it was the seeds of its destruction as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way my films sort of postulates is that 94, with the Criminal Justice Act coming into play, was a sort of pivot point in so many different ways. Obviously, it was the empire striking back against the folk, if you like, and creating a law that was targeted, obviously, at specific things like people listening to certain sounds in a field or what have you. So that drove that, but also travelling lifestyles.
And I think picketing as well.
Yeah.
So the trade unions were getting it, travellers were getting it, ravers or party goers were getting it,
and also people roaming. So
it's across the board, really. It wasn't just one section of society were getting it.
And that seems to have coincided, end of 94, with the Criminal Justice Act coming in, with Netscape Navigator arriving, strangely. The first publicly available web browser. and also with the European Union being fully ratified. So there's a funny combination of things going on. And I don't know if you feel like this, but I've always felt like the arrival of the European Union was like Britain finally kind of getting over its World War life and kind of joining the modern world.
Yeah.
And
not being exceptional about itself.
Yeah.
Which is why people hated it.
I guess so.
But
and now we're kind of at the end of that.
Well,
and,
now, you know.
and more and some.
Yeah. But yes, I didn't think about Netscape and all of that. I mean, I didn't get an email address until quite late.
Right.
But I knew people using it.
Yeah.
But yeah, 94. I was going to clubs a lot, so that's probably what I was doing at that point.
And I think a certain element of the underground culture moved into clubs, but obviously it's never quite the same when it's the same every week. It starts at the same time, shuts up at the same time.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of the free party people went off to Europe.
Well, they were hounded out, weren't they?
Yeah.
Really? And equipment was confiscated, and they were basically just hounded out.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if there were like police within the ranks of some of those groups as well. I mean, they seem to be very interested in animal rights and ecological campaigners and so on.
Yeah.
So,
well, all this spy cop stuff keeps coming out, doesn't it?
Was it 20, 25 now, I think?
Yeah. Crazy.
And they're all connected. You know, those scenes were always connected, weren't they?
Particularly, I think the road protests.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the sound system free party scene, and then probably later the animal rights element and the Reclaim the Streets.
Absolutely, because Reclaim the Streets, I went to quite a lot of their events. Were like parties basically,
but
not in the countryside, but like in the middle of London or on the Westway or Trafalgar Square, Brixton. I went to a few of those.
And in some ways they were, let's make the cities more like the country, weren't they? As in, it shouldn't all be about cars.
Yeah.
Let's bring a bit of that spirit back.
Yeah.
You know.
But I remember those, and you forget it. Yes, that's what's dangerous when things get joined up. Which never really happened with punk. Punk was just burnt it out so quickly. It was like 2 years gone, and it was just like bands with top of pops.
Yeah.
The dance music was much really, it affected the whole country, and it linked up with other people. So it was massively political, which I think I say that in the film. It was political, but the songs weren't necessarily.
No. But
it's just how the context of what you were doing and who you were meeting and how you got there was hugely political. But in a way more scary way. They weren't protest songs, but it was like protest behaviour.
Protest behaviour, I like that. Yeah, because I mean, pretty much everybody I interviewed for the film said to me, "Oh, we weren't political at all."
No, but you're meeting people, and then you're setting up things, and then you're doing this, and then you've got this sort of anti-road camp somewhere, and people up trees, and then you got people doing it. You realise actually it's what the state probably really, really fears. It's like people just meeting and sort of forming groups, and then those groups form bigger groups. And it becomes something you can't really control.
Yes, unity of people from lots of different backgrounds.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of an organic thing.
I think that's what struck me when in lockdown, looking at all this footage, the some footage that I did get of Castle Morton, and thanks enormously to those people who've given me that footage for usage in the film. And some of them are now involved with Extinction Rebellion, for example. So, but that was, I mean, people talk about diversity. That was the most diverse bunch of people I've ever seen in one space. I mean, countryside, urban, every ethnic diversity, clearly different sexual persuasions, traveller, wealthy. I mean, everybody was there. The kids from the public school up the road, the farm hands. I mean, literally everybody was in those fields.
It's a terrifying thought for a government, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they thought there was going to be a revolution, but it was just definitely something they didn't necessarily understand and weren't entirely happy with.
Yeah.
And then the roadblocks, which, police had learned about roadblocks in the miners' strike. So all those techniques, the miners' strike came in. There's a very good documentary on the BBC, BBC documentary that you can find online about the 1986 campaign by the police in 1986 to keep people away from Stonehenge. It's really interesting. The Wiltshire Police. I use it in my film.
Right.
It's an amazing film, but it's a beautiful film. It's shot on film,
Mm.
really well observed, and they had access to the police, and the police, the resources they put into it, the Wiltshire Police, was stunning.
Mm.
Men staying in barracks overnight, hundreds if not thousands of police being addressed by the chief of police, it's like a war situation. That's how it's appeared, to keep a couple hundred people away from Stonehenge. But that's all post miners' strike, pumped up police who were looking for the next exciting opportunity to get their overtime and push people around or whatever.
And of course, it's the 40th anniversary of the Beanfield this year.
This year, of course, in 85, isn't it? Yeah, this documentary is a year after the Beanfield, and they just flooded Wiltshire with so many police.
And I mean, Stonehenge itself has appeared in tons of your work.
Yeah, loads. And I went to Stonehenge. I went to Solstice. I haven't been to Solstice before.
Oh, you went to the Winter Solstice?
I went to one. I went to the Winter Solstice.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. No rave music.
No, you can't have any music that's amplified.
No, you can't. There was music there. There's like Morris type, folky stuff, and singing. There's all over the place, of course, because everyone has their own thing about Stonehenge. So there were like these druids, and there were those druids, and then there was singing, people singing songs to the sun. All made up, totally made up, in a sense, in a way that all religions are made up, and then people by themselves sitting quietly, and then people. I mean, maybe there's a bit. I think summer is more hedonistic.
I was there for the summer actually last year.
You stay overnight, don't you? You stay overnight, and it's people. You're not allowed to take alcohol on site, are you? Apparently,
I mean, you're not meant to be able to,
but
but everybody's. I think it's somewhat ignored.
Yeah, and people can take drugs. I'm sure that's much easier, isn't it? And so it was a different atmosphere, probably a little bit more serious and less people, obviously. It was really interesting. You arrive and you just think, what is this mess of people? And then you kind of find your rhythm within it. Like anything, like when you first turn up to a festival, what it's like. It can go either way, can't it? Those experiences.
Yeah.
But I found my rhythm within it. Just like watching people have the ashes of their loved ones and they're putting them on the ground and stuff, which is a really cool thing to have.
There's the smell of sage everywhere.
There's a bit of that, yes. People are relatively respectful of the stones. Relatively, they stand on these. The stones that fall over. A lot of people standing on them. Just, I don't know.
This disturbs you a bit. Did the little English heritage side of you think, excuse me, you putting out your fag on the...
No, well, it wasn't any of that, thankfully. I think it's just they want to keep the moss and the lichen on the stones, and you tread on it. It dies, because that probably protects the stones a bit. I mean, they've been there for thousands of years.
But why does it keep coming up in your work? Because
it keeps coming up in the culture. Every 2 weeks there's a story about Stonehenge, isn't there? Like, this is it. We've solved it, or we think we're going to solve it because we found this about this, and then like 2 weeks later, no, actually it's this now, and we think it was there. And so it's like constant. It's constantly in our minds because we're always being shown images of it and stories about it in the press. Can't get enough of it. And it's obviously it's like kind of our pyramids, isn't it? In a way, it's our sort of founding myth.
Yeah.
But still, it's a total mystery. And the pyramids are not a mystery compared to Stonehenge. Stonehenge is, we sort of know as a big sort of astrological clock, but we don't know anything about. There's no written accounts. At least in as hieroglyphics, you can tell what's going on. You don't know who these people were, what their names were, what language they spoke, anything, music. So it's an amazing blank canvas for the public and for artists.
Yes.
You can project any beliefs you have onto it about yourself, but also about society and history and your spiritual life. So in the book, the chapter is Stonehenge is a Mirror, and it basically reflects images of ourselves back to us. And so that's why we are obsessed with it. And it will always fascinate us. because we'll never know, but we keep trying to find out.
Mm.
And however clever we are, we can go into space, we can do all these different things, cure, amazing technology. We'll never know until time travel is invented, when we might be able to find out. If you set the dials to the correct time and place, how it was made and what happened there and who was there.
And maybe that's the last thing we should do, because partly why it's the joy is that it is this this kind of Rorschach test on nation.
It's very interesting talking to archaeologists about it. They love that. Because that means they can keep coming up with theories.
Yeah, that keeps them in work.
It keeps them in work, and and really, archaeology is the study of human behaviour. It's not the study of objects. It's the study of what were those objects doing and why. It's not really this coin is or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like how was it used and why is it here and who used it and what did it really look like and what was it's about ritual and all those things. So when you go to Stonehenge, I have archaeologist friends. And I saw a Druid ceremony a few years ago at Stonehenge with him. There's like a special day that I was working on, and a lot of archaeologists are really into Druid ceremonies and sort of the behavioural aspects of when people get there, because it gives them a clue as to what may have happened 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, because your reaction to it might be similar to the reaction of your ancestors.
Yeah.
Wanting to do something or seeing or whatever. So it helps to sort of figure out what's going on.
It's kind of a time travelling in some ways to be able to see.
A little bit, yes.
I mean, what struck me when I was there for the summer solstice was that whoever built this place, they knew that they were choosing a particularly fabulous place to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, as the sort of dawn was coming up, effectively the stones were surrounded by a sea of mist when we were there. And I think this happens quite a lot for whatever reason. And you would see, pilgrims effectively coming out of the mist towards the stones. And it was like, they knew what they were doing, right? They really understood it.
In the daytime, midday, you've got the sky above you. There's nothing really around. They might... and there's huge skies there with clouds going over. It's quite windy, so the clouds are going quite fast. It's very dramatic.
It is.
I went there very early one morning, and it's a full moon, and the sun was rising like opposite each other, and the mist was there, and it was like the light show was incredible with the moon and the sun going through it. And the atmospherics there are incredible.
Yeah,
the mists, the fogs, the lights, and it changes colour. When I made Sacrilege, I went on a sort of secret visit. You can go, or you used to be able to go quite cheaply with English Heritage at sort of like 9 a.m. and have like a personal tour with like 20 people at a time. So we booked a tour. We didn't tell, no one knew at this point what we were doing. But we took the people the guy who was making it, and us, a little team, and we went as punters, and they went and tried to work out the colour of it. And they went right up to it with these colour cards and was trying to do stuff. And of course, we were there on a really overcast, grey February morning. But if you went on a sunrise with the sun, it would be golden. It'll be glowing. So our version of Sacrilege is the sort of overcast, bad English weather version, because it does change colour.
Yeah.
It's all different times.
Yeah, because sometimes it would be silhouette, sometimes it would be the golden hour light. It would. Yeah, they clearly knew what they were doing in terms of, they were architects, but they were also sort of artists. Weren't they?
Yeah, and they were thinking about that stone also has silica in it, so it glistens as well, different colours. So they understood the properties of the stones and what they could do and how they could, the effect they would have.
And I gather as also there's an acoustic element, as in if you stand at certain places when it would have been more complete, and you hit a certain note.
Yeah, there would have been a resonance.
It would have been like an amplifier, effectively.
Yeah. And also, just people would have come from miles, hundreds of miles, to see a structure that had lintels put on. There's no structure up to that point. That's the only stone circle in Britain, I think. that has lintels. These
So the top bit,
gigantic,
basically.
yeah, the top bit. These things that weigh. So you go and see that and just think, how did they do that? This is insane. This is like magic.
Yeah.
It's like putting someone on the moon. It's the equivalent of that, but for 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
Yeah,
It's like an absolute sensation to make something that did that.
Yeah, and it really works. I mean, I'm going to take my kids, I think, for the summer one this time, because it's just like, even though there's, you know, a bunch of people now with, you know, bibs on, going through your bag as you go through and all that sort of stuff. Once you're in, I was transformed to another
Really?
place, you know, and I was no more inebriated than just it being 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and
Yeah.
it was you're tired, but there was something about, you know, the sage and everything else going around that just meant you were like, "Ooh." So
No,
yeah,
it's great.
it is magic for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cliche, but it is great. That's
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah. Well, I have to say thank you so much. It's been an
No,
absolute
it's a pleasure, Aaron.
pleasure to chat. And yeah, buy the book, obviously. Buy the book. It's a fabulous book. I love the book. The book sort of reminds me of like one of those kind of annuals that I used to get.
It's got a certain name, that format with the cover that's wiped clean
Yeah,
in a way. It's meant to have that sort of fun about it visually.
quite cut and
It's
paste.
silly in
Yeah.
places and just make it full of visually quite an exciting
Yeah,
book. I'd
yeah,
like to
yeah.
think.
It is. It really is. No, it really is. So highly recommended.
But
Lovely.
thank you very much.
Nice one. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.